Hey podcast fans, we're going to be recording episode 200 of Talking Cars in front of a live audience in Brooklyn, New York on Friday, April 19th, and we want you to be there. Just send us an email to talkingcars@consumer.org and let us know if you can join us for this special event. Tickets are free and on a first-come, first-served basis, so don't delay. Secure your tickets today. We hope to see you there.
On this episode, we give our first impressions of the new Kia Telluride SUV. With tax day around the corner, we talk about what the $7,500 EV tax credit really means, and we have a debate over mandatory speed limiting software. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everyone and welcome back to another show. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Mike Quincy.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
And this week, like always, we've got some news, we've got a new car into our test program, and we've also got viewer questions. So we're going to jump into the news part because it's interesting. Don't jump ahead. It's something that falls into our wheelhouse as far as safety, but has a very interesting part after. Comes from the European Union. They have a provisional agreement on vehicle safety technologies. Starting in 2022, they're going to make a number of features mandatory, and that's something that we at Consumer Reports advocate for. So let me just run them off. Mandatory safety features will include automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, and backup cameras, which we have standard mandatory here now in the United States, event data recorders to store information before a crash, and drowsy driver detection. Mike, we talked about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. What do you think on this?
I think the idea of forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, that these are two pieces of equipment that Consumer Reports strongly recommends because it's backed up with data. In other words, they can look at the cars that are equipped with this and they can show a decrease in accidents or injuries. So listen, we're behind that. In terms of lane departure warning and lane keeping assist, my own experience with our own test cars, if they're too intrusive, I want to turn them off. Okay?
Right. Depending on the road.
I kind of appreciate that they're there. I like how technology is moving forward, but some of them, I need to be able to easily find the button to turn it off. I don't want to wade through menus because it's obviously happening while you're driving, right? So can I access the off button if it's too intrusive? And that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Mike, what's your experience with it? What do you think about the mandatory aspect of it, and also how some of the features work with our roads?
Well, I mean, as far as the lane keep and assist, we already deal with some of these systems. Automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning. We definitely love those. Lane keep and assist. I totally agree with Mike that sometimes it can be helpful. But if it's intrusive, you want to turn it off, and quite often these days you can't turn it off easily. It seemed like more cars when they first came out with these systems, there was a button that you could easily, turn it off, and more it's in a menu in the infotainment display screen. So I think that you should be able to turn it off. I'm not sure if the lane keep and assist will be able to be turned off on these European cars, or will it be, have to always be on. But you're leaving out the most important thing, the intelligent speed assistance. I mean, because that's the big thing that everyone's going to be talking about is they're saying that they're going to electronically limit the cars in certain speed areas that they can't go above the speed limit. They will be able to for short bursts, to pass a car or something like that. But that's the thing that I think is going to drive people nuts, especially here in the U.S. That's going to be a big talking point.
Right. But I think the interesting aspect of it is that intelligent speed assist is actually on some cars in Europe today. Okay, so Ford Focus and S-Max that they sell over in Europe. Vehicles from Honda, from Jaguar Land Rover, from Mercedes-Benz, and from Volvo, they have these features. I also think that Europeans may actually accept it a lot more than here in America because tons of speed cameras in Europe.
Right.
In fact, in France, one of the things is you cover a certain distance between two toll booths too quickly, they'll fine you. It may be just acceptance because they have so much of that already. Now, like Mike said, the system will be able to be defeated with accelerating. So you're in a 45.
But only for a short period of time, right?
Well, and then there'll be an alert.
Right.
But you can also, there will be a defeat button. So much like, say, the auto start, the engine auto stop start. Right. You can turn it off when you start the car. You can have it off, and then you can turn it up. It'll reset when you restart the car. That's part of like an acceptance. Oh, well, it's like a mild lead-in type of thing. But you're right. Mike, you had a huge feeling on this yesterday.
Well, United States tried to do a national speed limit of 55 miles an hour, which
You couldn't drive 55, could you?
No, and I'm not Sammy Hagar either.
Yes.
But there's always going to be. I think when you put in the technology in the cars that Europe is suggesting, there's going to be people that are going to find a way around it. Just like when remember the wicked buzzers that used to go off if you didn't buckle your seatbelt. There was the automatic belts that would wrap around you, but you also had to put on the lap belt. People wouldn't always do this. I think if you're forcing the technology, there's going to be backyard mechanics. They're going to find a way to short circuit it.
And we're right, and we're talking about something that's a European thing. It's we don't know that it's going to become a U.S. thing at all.
It's not on a table.
Right,
at this
and
point.
even if it was, maybe the speed, you'd still be the same speed limits we have now. It would be, when you can go 70, you can go 70. There's like Texas, there's parts you can go 80. Maybe they would keep that. But, and there are trucking fleets in the U.S. that limit their trucks to 70, 75, which I think is actually a pretty good thing. I don't see any reason why an 80,000-pound vehicle needs to go faster than that. But I will also say this. I think for anyone who's worried that, oh, man, they're going to, we won't be able to have any fun in a car anymore. There's still states with no motorcycle helmet laws, including the state that the Auto Test Center is in, Connecticut.
Right.
And, cars have crash structure, they have safety belts, and you have guys on motorcycles. And I'm a motorcyclist, and I love riding my motorcycle. I would never ride my motorcycle without a helmet. So until there's motorcycle helmet laws, I don't think people need to freak out that they're going to start totally governing our speeds in cars.
Yeah, I think if we could bring it back, because I know we can talk forever about this. I think the interesting aspect of it, the red meat aside of the speed limiting, is that if all these features are mandatory in Europe on vehicles built in Europe or built by European manufacturers, because look, the X5 is BMW X5 is popular. It's exported to Europe because it's built here in the United States. If those are all standard for Europe, they're going to probably be standard on U.S. cars as well. So any Volvo,
that's fine. That's good.
Because a lot of times, and I know that you brought it up, is it's an $80,000 car, and part of the reason it's $80,000, we had to buy a $3,000 package to get a certain safety feature. And so the mandating safety features is a good thing because you're not going to be forced into an option package to get a safety feature along with a sunroof. Right. That's a huge thing that bothers us.
Yeah.
Right, but there's, as we know, there's different standards between European and U.S. Vehicles in terms of emissions, safety, DOT stuff, things like that. Sure. And this sounds like a lot of software, which can be easier changed than hardware.
And I do think that people over here are going to be worried about a potential event data recorder being in their car.
Certainly.
They're going to be worried about the intelligent speed assist. But as far as the other technologies that we could have, and we already have some of them as far as limiting teens. Okay, teens. That's a good idea to limit the teen. And there's already cars. The key fob can be configured so that the whoever has that key can't go over a certain speed. I think that's a great idea.
Well, we're going to have more of this as it develops. There'll be a vote on it in Europe. It even isn't.
It's not even 100%.
It isn't even 100% yet, but. It's
interesting.
It's likely, and we're going to see it roll out.
But you could say to the people in the United States that own a Corvette, don't panic.
Yeah. That's true. So we're going to move over now to the new car in our test fleet. We just picked up a 2020 Kia Telluride. It's the EX V6 all-wheel drive SUV, 3 rows. Ours, just a few options. I mean, we added in paint and some floor mats and carpeted cargo tray, and that's it. It's a lot of features for the money. Mike, I know you've driven it extensively, so.
I love this. I love this truck. I mean, it's kind of a truck, right? We can call it a truck.
It wants to be a truck. Let's put it that way.
Mike wants it to be.
It is. It's a bit more vehicle than I need in my life right now. I mean, I've been on this podcast before talking about
you have?
SUVs being a little bit too big, but for what it is, what it's designed to do, I think the interior is beautiful. I think the typical, Kia and Hyundai easy controls. It's a smooth powertrain. It's a quiet ride. I think this vehicle is much nicer than I guess speaking for me, it's much nicer than I thought it was going to be. Why spend $84,000 on our BMW X7 when you can get a Telluride for half as much money? Because the Telluride does just about everything that X7 does.
I agree a lot of that, not 100%. It's definitely not as quiet as the X7. And, it's not as sporty. It doesn't have some of the features, but I totally agree in the sense of usability and what it offers. I mean, look, in our standard rear cross traffic warning, standard forward collision warning, standard automatic emergency braking,
And you've got
three-zone
smaller
climate.
kids. You've got smaller kids, so you might be doing carpools and whatnot.
Yep.
That vehicle, I could see that totally fitting into
totally.
your household. It's not really for my household.
It's a huge second row seat, too.
But boy, if you're looking for a sort of a luxurious SUV and you don't want to spend a ton of money, check out the Telluride.
So driving dynamics, you spend some time in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another Kia that they did a solid job on it, and that's something that Kia and Hyundai are usually pretty good about. They do a solid job on vehicles, and here's this new one, and again, it's pretty nice to drive. I agree with just about everything you said, Mike. That it has a pretty nice ride. The V6 is pretty smooth and pretty powerful. I'm not ready to say that if the choice for the weekend was between the Telluride and the X5 or the X7, that I would take the Telluride. And honestly, is it sporty to drive like a Mazda CX-9? No, absolutely not. It's more like a Subaru Ascent in that it's just a really good everyday vehicle. It's got some nice touches inside. It has this sort of open pore. It's fake wood trim, but it's supposed to look like the new open pore wood trim. And it's well done. The seats are pretty comfortable and really good visibility out. The windshield pillars are pretty slim, but there's some oddities, like the press photos made it look so impressive, and then you get there and it's like, oh, okay, it's only okay. And it has these Porsche Cayenne-like grab handles in the center console that looked gigantic and they're really not. But the bigger problem I have with those grab handles is they're in the way of my right knee. If those grab handles weren't there for basically looks, I would have room for my right knee for the center console.
Or you could grow.
And you're having knee and leg issues.
Was that
anyway,
another short joke? Yeah, this guy every time.
A couple interesting points of it is that the Kia version of the SUVs come out first instead of the Hyundai Palisade, which will be coming out later this year. Usually, the Hyundai version comes out first, and then the Kia follows a year later. Our reliability data has shown that the Hyundai's, as a first-year model, has a drop from the previous generation or previous version. And then the Kia comes out with much better reliability. They've incorporated some of the fixes. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Does the Kia have better or worse reliability? Does the Hyundai benefit, or are they just close enough that there won't be an issue?
But in some ways, you got to give the dual company a little credit because they're learning from their mistakes. They have the early models might have some growing pains, and then the second version comes out, and it's usually better.
It also does speak to, as much as Hyundai and Kia want to say that they're separate, they're still owned by the same parent, and they still incorporate a lot of it in lower parts.
The other thing I want to say about it is that the second row seat is actually quite nice in terms of, it's got, manufacturers sometimes have to make a compromise. Do we give plenty of headroom and, put the seat pretty low? And in this case, it's got plenty of headroom and there's good thigh support. The seat is not so low that your knees are bent. Now, third row is a different story. I know you're going to want to make a short joke here because that's your deal. So I actually do fit in the third row. The foot space is quite tight. Headroom's okay. But the seat is so low that your knees are totally, at an angle. So
which
I mean,
is not atypical.
Even though it's a pretty big vehicle, it still is not. That's not a adult third row back there at all.
It's more Pilot or Highlander versus the Ascent. Right. The Ascent's huge. It's a temporary for adults. It's a kid-centric.
Better than the Sorento, which
much
is their other
Kia
third
Sorento,
row.
I was going to say, I agree with the second row seat. I sat back there and I'm longer of leg, short of torso, and lots of support. Ton of thigh support, a lot of foot room. It's an impressive vehicle.
Yeah.
We'll see how it tests. But so far it seems from just early drives that it's a good hit. It's a big hit.
I think it's going to do well.
So now we're going to move to the viewer question segment. And we love getting the video questions. We love getting text questions. Send them in, TalkingCars@iCloud.com. We get a ton. We will get to questions as quickly as we can. We just get so many, which is great. First one is a video question. Hit it.
Hi, Consumer Reports team. Hey, I'm watching the weather and noticing that you guys are getting some pretty bad storms this year. And when I think about my own car, being 6 years old with 110,000 miles on it, I noticed that it's got what I would consider a little wear and tear because of the easy life, the easy Southern California life it gets. So I got to wonder, when you guys do the reviews of quality or reliability on the cars, do you take into account where the majority of those cars live their life? Thank you, and keep putting on a great show.
Okay, so look, reliability question. Gentleman's from California. Two things first. We don't test for reliability. Easy for me to say. We don't test for reliability here at Consumer Reports. It comes from our auto survey of Consumer Reports members. So
Yeah, we provide the data, but we
Right,
aren't.
they
We aren't,
provide us the data,
we aren't
we-
coming up with the data.
exactly,
right,
we're not coming to data.
from our test cars.
And second, part of that survey means the sample size kind of washes out all the randoms. Oh, I have a 10,000 mile car in California and the guy has a 20,000 mile version in Detroit. It all washes out because it's around the country.
Right.
Mike, you lived in California, had some thoughts on this?
Well, yeah. I mean, so the first thing is that you're right. The members that are CR members that are giving us this information are from all over the country. So we're getting people from everywhere. And also, I lived in Southern California for 16 years, and yeah, it's nice in some ways to the cars in terms of, if you live in a state like California, which either doesn't get much snow or where they do get snow, they don't salt, it's going to be better for the body and it's going to be better for the stuff underneath the car that you're not driving, through salt and stuff like that. But it's also hard on a car to be constantly stuck in traffic, which if you live in Southern California, you're always stuck in traffic. And it's actually pretty hot there a good portion of the year. It's tough on the paint.
Tough on the rubber,
and also if you live, near the ocean, you've got that salty air now that can be, affecting the car. And if you live inland at all, now you've got, a lot of dust, and you've got dust that is then on the car. Then the sun, because again, it's constantly sunny there, is baking that dust into the car.
So you're saying there are some dirt roads in California
there's absolutely,
too, yeah.
There's absolutely some dirt roads. Well, plus, anything inland gets a little deserty, and just, there's not that much greenery, there's not that much grass or trees. So, any dust just blows around.
So basically, all areas of the country have their own individual elements.
Absolutely.
They all affect cars differently, and it's going to get, in the end, it gets washed out in the survey.
There's extreme weather all around.
Right,
There's
right.
extreme, heat and sun in Arizona. There's extreme cold and winter in the Dakotas. You've got all the humidity down in Florida, for example. So I think our data is designed to weed out any kind of anomalies.
Right.
If we're gonna see, bad paint, it isn't necessarily because of the environment. It's probably related to how the manufacturers applied it.
Right.
More so, and we're going to see that throughout all of the
yeah,
samples.
if you leave your car out in Southern California, Arizona, any of those places outside, if it's not garaged,
Texas.
it's going to affect the paint.
Our next question comes from Brandon. He says, first of all, I love the show. Buying a car is such an emotional decision. It's important to have reviewers who are objective, so thank you. My questions are, can you explain tire codes to me? What are the numbers on the tire and what do they mean? Very true. Tires, it's almost like a mystery, kind of hieroglyphs on the side of the tire. Mike, we've got some stuff on consumerreports.org. Do you want to give us a little information on it?
It's to kind of break down the tire code. We're going to really focus on the big letters and numbers that you're seeing right now. For example, if you take a tire that's sized the P215/60R16, that refers to the width and the sidewall height. And the 16 is the wheel's rim's diameter in inches. So if you get a buddy and they get a new car and they say, oh, I got 20s, that would be the R20 at the end of that big
so that's
long
the wheel
string.
height.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually there's a really great detailed link that if you check out the show notes, you can find out more information about how to read a tire. But the thing that we talked about in our first meeting, the most important number on a tire's sidewall is the air pressure. Now, don't use the pressure that's listed on the tire's sidewall. That's for maximum pressure. If you want to find out exactly what your tire needs in terms of PSI air pressure, you got to look at the placard in the door jamb. Sometimes it's in the glove box. Other times it's on the fuel filler door. That's that's the amount of pressure that you should put in your car's tires.
It's kind of the range that the tire can hold. You don't want to go below a minimum. You don't want to go above a maximum.
Right.
But too many people fill
But they see the number on the side of the tire. Oh, they pop that.
What was the size tire you quoted there?
P215/60R16.
Right. So the other interesting thing about that, so like you said, the 215 is the width. The 60 is
the width of the
60
tread.
is 60 is the ratio of the sidewall height to the cross section width, and so that's kind of an interesting number, that because that tells you how tall the sidewall is in comparison to the width.
The width of the tire,
it's a percentage.
And a smaller sidewall could produce a more brutal ride.
Absolutely.
Right, stiffer, so it has better grip. It doesn't roll around as much, but it produces a worse ride. Taller sidewall.
But in terms of replacing your car's tires, we always tell people go with the same size.
Yes.
You're probably vary the manufacturer and whatnot, but go with the same size.
Yeah, don't plus size or something. Right. The one thing that I was looking at, kind of a key thing also, there's a DOT number, Department of Transportation, and it'll be around the numbers and the size of the tire, but that tells you when the tire was made and where it was made. Key information for a recall. So if you ever read about a recall for your tires, that's going to be on that information there. Sometimes it might be white if the letters are painted white on tires. Usually it's going to be black in the rubber. You'll have to look in closely, but that's key information. So, God forbid there's a tire that starts, delaminating or something, the tread separates. That's where you look to see if it was the one made, if it's on your car.
But lots of tire information on consumerreports.org. We got great tire testers here, a ton of information.
So our next question is about car interior colors. Ray reached out to ask, why are black interiors so popular? Our last purchase was between a Mazda CX-9 and a Subaru Outback. The Mazda's black headliner and limited rear visibility made it feel like I was in a cave, where the Subaru's airy interior and cream-colored headliner had excellent visibility. We've also had several rentals with black interiors, and they're punishingly hot on summer days. Mike, you were talking about some testing we did on heat and sun and how it affects cars. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So one of our CR's child seat engineers, Emily Thomas, PhD. She makes me call her Doc. Yeah, I'm kidding. She doesn't make me call her Doc. So she did some testing. It was more about reasons why you don't want to leave your child or pet in a car. Doing some testing for how hot do cars really get, when they're closed and left in a parking lot. And so the point related to this, and so you can check out that story on consumerreports.org. It's hot car fatalities are year-round threat to children and pets. But related to this question, what she did was she took two cars, a light color exterior, light color interior versus a dark exterior, dark interior, had them both outside. They both started at 78 degrees inside the car. Within an hour, they were both over 100 degrees.
Right,
now
she measured that.
She measured these. Now the darker car did get a little bit hotter, but only by a few degrees, 5 degrees hotter. And that was only an hour. But so think about how hot these cars would get for even a longer period of time. The point being, yes, a light color interior maybe is going to be a little bit less, but when you're talking over 100 degrees, it's just hot.
Right.
Think of a car as it's like an oven, right? You've got all this glass area and the sun beating down. It's going to get hot no matter what color it is. So
right. A white car in Florida, it feels to your mind that it might be like, oh, it's going to be much cooler with tinted windows. A black car with tinted windows will be very close. There's
like
a lot more factors than just the color.
Right.
A perception.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and the amount of difference isn't enough for me to not buy that, not buy that darker interior.
I lived in Austin, Texas for a while, and they say, oh, it's a dry heat, as opposed to Houston, which is a humid heat.
Right.
But 110 is 110, even in Austin, Texas.
But we were talking some of the styling, because styling has a huge impact on this with a dark interior, particularly a CX-9.
Right. A lot of SUVs have this bodywork that kind of tapers up as it goes toward the rear glass. So that's kind of a factor in terms of car buying, especially if you have small kids, because they want to be able to see out.
Right.
And a lot of times when people talk about a dark cave-like interior, it can be lightened up if you have a moonroof, a sunroof, to pull back the sunshade. That automatically just brightens up every car, every test vehicle that I get into. I'm always pulling back the shade just to bring in more light.
Well, and it's true. You see in the Ascent we have. I mean, it has a huge, greenhouse.
Right.
As it, the tall window in the front, big window in the back. Even if it's a darker interior, it feels airy. The Kia does a good job. It's a darker lower part, but the top. Even though it has a small sunroof, it doesn't have it's not gigantic. It doesn't feel as dark inside because it's a lighter top. So it's a dark bottom. Sure, it's easier to clean and doesn't show dirt as much.
That's what I was going to say. That's one of the big reasons why people like dark interiors, black interiors, because it doesn't show up the dirt, or at least nowhere near as much. You have a gray interior, a beige or tan interior. It's going to show any smudge, stain, grime. It's going to show up, and it's hard to get out. And then when you try and resell the car, you've got these stains on it. That being said, my Ferrari 328 GTS I'm going to buy someday is, it's going to have a red exterior, tan leather seats. But I like the way Ferrari always did like a black dash and then kind of mixed the tan and the black on the doors.
And if we're sticking with the high end right here, if you go to buy a new Porsche 911, you can probably get just about any color you want.
You can do paint to sample and you can have the interior. Magnum called and said there's a number of them for sale. Like, there's a lot out there.
But you have to wear.
It's
a
sweet
shirt.
area actually to buy, but that's a different story.
I need the 87 though because that's got the concave wheels.
Right.
On that note, we're going to move on to Tan's question. And he asks about, with tax day approaching, I have a question about the $7,500 federal tax credit. Our family is interested in the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, which is eligible for this credit. Many dealers and auto journalists often represent the amount as a deduction off the manufacturer's suggested retail price, the MSRP, but that's not how it actually works, right? I thought tax credits can only be used if taxes are owed. Can you clarify how the credit actually works? You're correct. A lot of places will say, hey, you can get this and it's $7,500 off. Not the case. The government isn't cutting a check to you. The dealer isn't cutting a check to you. They're not knocking the price down. Basically, tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction of the income tax you owe. So if you owe $1,000 in federal taxes and get a $1,000 federal tax credit, your net liability drops to zero. So $7,500 is only worth to you someone who owes more than $7,500. So, owe zero, no credit for you. Owe $5,000, you get a $5,000 credit. It's different with leasing though.
Right. I don't know why they let us on the show because he's the smartest one here.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
that was good. That was a good
I haven't
answer.
even done my taxes yet, but maybe if I owe a lot of money, I should go buy an electric car, right?
Well,
I think that's what you're saying.
So that sets up a great point because the lessor, so the person leasing the car out, not the person leasing the vehicle, is entitled to the credit. But good thing that you could do is you could ask them to incorporate the tax credit into the price of the vehicle. So you lower the price of the vehicle, they're still getting the credit, and you have a lower monthly payment. That's probably the best way to get the federal tax credit, the full amount, into your vehicle.
And then it can be the lesser of two evils.
That's true. That's true. I don't have an answer for that. One of the things I looked up is that the Chrysler Pacifica, they haven't sold enough of them to even limit the hybrid, Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, full tax credits available. So if you have a big tax liability, that'll go money in your pocket.
All right.
So
Sounds good.
on that note, we're going to finish up this episode. As always, send us your video, send us your text questions to talkingcars@icloud.com. Check the show notes below for all the information that we talked about. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.